last little piece that we need to go through. We obviously had Nick come up and talk about scale, and the myth that I wanted him to bust is this idea that systems reduce creativity and serendipity. There is a base level of systems and processes that need to be in place for your business to work, and then what you really need to do is listen. You have to have the right metrics and dashboards set up so that you can spot the opportunity. And then what scale is about is finding the things that work, that they kind of work, but you don't even have to try very hard and they work. Have you ever had those sort of things where you just do something and it just works and it doesn't feel like you're pushing a rock up a hill or anything like that? That's where true scale comes from. You notice something that works easy and then you go, wow, let's double down on this and give it all that we've got. Now, the areas when I think of scale and how it fits in terms of the systemology framework is I want you to identify the systems that fall outside of the CCF. So the critical client flow is about getting paid. It's about attracting a lead, converting a lead, onboarding them, delivering the product or service, and then getting them to come back. But obviously there are a whole bunch of systems outside of that that are also required for scale. And Nick said it best, what happens if you take 90 days off? What is it that breaks? So I wanted to give you a few of the systems that you should consider outside of the critical client flow, because these are some of the things that will break first as you start to scale. So if we think in terms of how HR and management, you need some systems and processes around how you hire staff. You need systems and processes around how you onboard that staff. Nick talked about the training and things like that for staff, and also how you manage the staff. So for me, underneath that HR, that kind of falls outside of the CCF. Once you've got your CCF in place, then that's kind of some of the next systems that you need to look at. Also, the other area is finance. So how are you getting bills paid? How are you paying wages? What are your responsibilities for ATO or taxation? Any sort of reporting, like we saw dashboards and things like that, the reporting from the finance department to extract that data out and then deliver it to you, the business owner and your integrator, on a weekly basis or a monthly basis. They should be emailing you the P&L breakdown and comparing it to the variance to their budget and things like that. Depending on where you're at, I don't want to go too deep into that other than to say, after you get your critical client flow into place, look for hiring systems, onboarding systems, and then the management of the staff. And then you need to think around your invoicing, your expenses, and your reporting. They're the things that are falling outside of the critical client flow. So you just focus on that. And then that's when we move into the final step, which is the optimization step. So the myth here that we need to bust is that you need to get this perfect out of the gate. And people, when they think about systems and processes, they're trying to document it, they're trying to get it just right, but that will evolve over time. And sometimes if you've got some really great people, like that's important. If you have a loose structure and you've got great people, they can do a pretty good job of implementing it. Whereas if even if you've got the most detailed systems and processes and work instructions known to man, if you've got average staff who can't really implement it, then what's it really worth? So we just need to keep things simple, and the optimization happens later. So that's why I've left it until the end. And the things that we'll look at is really just a 3-step process around measuring. So you're listening to what's going on in the business. Then we're going to look at how do you spot and identify the problems and issues that are going on in your business. How do you then come up with like an innovation that fixes that problem? And then how, once you've tested it and go, yes, this works, how do you then like implement that and make that as part of the way that you do business moving forward? So where people get stuck, and we mentioned it earlier, is people look at McDonald's and some of these big franchise companies and they think, well, I want my systems to be like that. Again, they read some books on systemization and they'll talk about changing the colour of your shirt is going to increase sales by 10% or whatever. You don't try and figure that out and run those types of tests early on in the piece. We first need to get a little bit of traction, get something into place, and then we can start to go, all right, well, what can we split test? So we need to kind of think, we're not going to start at McDonald's. You kind of start where you are, and over time you'll kind of build it up. So think about where you are, kind of head in the right direction, and over time you can kind of just keep leveling up as you go, and don't search for that perfection. Everything will get better as you go. So the key with optimization is just thinking about when is the right time. This is a linear system that I have given you. So optimization happens at the end. So you have to have everything in your critical client flow documented before you should start optimization. You should have all of the systems required for scale that I mentioned before. You want to have all of that in place first before then you start going off on these little side tangents. And the other thing, and the reason that this is so critically important as well is Nick had mentioned that things grow in different directions, and something here will impact another part of the business over here. So what you need to do is make sure that we've got metrics in place, so we're measuring what's going on in the business, so if we do make a change, if we do optimize, we can see where the flow-on effect is. Hey, if I change the way that my recruiting system worked, that actually caused problems further down the line in this other department. So everything with optimization is you first got to have something to optimize. You need a baseline to compare against. That's what optimizing is. You know, you think about split testing, you're comparing one against the other, but you've got to have your baseline, and then when you're split testing, you're trying to knock your baseline off and go, wow, I've got a winner here that beats my old method of doing things. Now it's okay to swap it out. Does that kind of make sense? So that's why it comes near the end. And yeah, so at this point as well, some level of optimization has already happened as well. When you go through the systemology process, you've defined your critical client flow, you're assigning it to an individual, you're extracting the knowledge out of their head. You know, they're doing things like the pre-extraction form. Just putting attention on something, as much as I say capture what you're doing, putting some attention on what is going on will improve it, because the person will start to question, why do I do this? And there's the review process. There's the extractor who takes it out and does, you know, the documentation, and then it goes back to the person and they review it and they go, oh, that's not quite what I meant, we should have moved this here or there. And then also there's the primary owner, and then there's the secondary owner. So once the primary owner then teaches it to the secondary owner, they're going to find out where all the holes are in the system. So there is already some level of optimization that has occurred up until this point. But we just don't want to get too caught in that optimization, because then it just stops you from getting it done.